part of you that would think, maybe this person's trying to hurt me? Or how about if you saw me walking down the street with a beautiful lady on my arm, and I'm all dressed up? Would you think that was my lady, or would you think that was a pimp? See, it's unfortunate because we live in a society where we are judged by what we look like before we have an opportunity to even open our mouths. People look at us, and because of our skin color, because of our gender, because of what we look like, because of our clothes, people are quick to judge us before we even have an opportunity to explain who we are. See, the sad thing is that this is the world that we live in, and we do it to everybody, and everybody does it back to us. And I think it's so important that we try to change our thinking to give people an opportunity to get to know who they are before we actually just judge them for what they look like. See, if you saw me walking down that street in the dark alley, some of you might be a little bit scared, but if you got to know me, you would know I've been a police officer for the last 15 years, and I would actually be there to help you. If you saw me walking down the street with a lady on my arm dressed all up, maybe some of you might think I was a pimp, but if you got to know me, you would know I've been married to the most beautiful woman in the world for the last 12 years. It's all perception. It's all the way we see things, because we often judge people by the way they look before we give them an opportunity to show us who they are. Now, I've got a question for you. So this is a workshop, so I'm hoping to get some interaction from everybody today, if that's okay. So I got a question for you. And some of you might have asked this inside your head. Some of you may not have asked this out loud. But I'm hoping today that we can have this open conversation and dialogue. Why do we even have a Black History Month? Now, I'm hoping for some honesty. Has anybody ever asked this question? Why do we even have a Black History Month? Oh, y'all lying. Come on. Nobody has ever thought this before? Like, why do we have Black History Month? No one has ever thought this before? Everyone's quiet. I think a few people, I see a few smirks. So I think a few people have asked this in your head. Why do we even have Black History Month? Why do we have an Asian Heritage Month? Why do we have a Women's History Month? Well, I'm going to ask a few questions again. I'm hoping to get some responses from you guys. So do me a favor. I want you to put your hand in the air if you did not know. So I'm going to make some statements. And if you did not know this, I want you to put your hand in the air. Is that good? Can we do that? All right, perfect. Okay. Put your hand in the air if you did not know that slavery existed in Canada. If you did not know this. Okay, so a few hands. A few hands. So we know, we always see the studies and what's happening in the United States, and we know that in the U.S., slavery existed for over 400 years. But right here in Canada, we had slavery as well. Slavery existed. It was in our laws. It was in the government. And slavery existed within our country for about 200 plus years. And there was ads that were taken out, as you can see here. Hopefully the ones in the back can see this as well. There was ads that were taken out about people being sold. So as you can see here, it was in Halifax. They're looking to sell a boy and a girl about 11 years old. Right here in our country, we had slavery. All right, so I got another question for you. Put your hand up if you knew that the first slave to arrive in this country arrived in 1628. If you did not know that, put your hand up. All right, pretty much everybody. All right, now that's very specific. So this young man named Olivier Lejeune was the name of his slave owner. And when a slave was bought by an owner, they would often take on the last name of the slave owner to show that that was his or her property. And so this young man was brought to Canada. He's considered the first slave to be brought to Canada. And the sad thing is that he was only 6 years old. Does anybody have a 6-year-old sibling at home, brother or sister or cousin or someone in your family? So consider that child, 6, 7 years old. Consider that child being a slave. And that's what this young man was when he arrived here in Canada. All right, I got another one. Put your hand up if you did not know that the first Black person to arrive in Canada was actually not a slave. Put your hand up if you did not know that. Okay, we got a lot of hands there, perfect. So the first person who actually came to Canada, the first Black person to come to Canada, as I said, was not a slave. He was actually an interpreter. He came over to help the people who were trying to explore the land to translate with the indigenous people who were here first. And I'm not sure how he knew the language, but he was able to translate. He knew 4 to 5 different languages. And he came over as a free man in 1603. He is considered on record the first person of African descent to actually have touched the lands of Canada. All right, got another one. Put your hand up if did not know. Put your hand up if you did not know that we had segregated schools here in Canada. If you did not know that we had segregated schools in Canada. So we got a couple hands. So again, because there was slavery, because there was separation within our country of Canada, there's actually schools that were segregated. And the sad thing is that the last segregated school, which was in Nova Scotia, only closed 36 years ago. And when you consider 36 years ago, some of y'all have parents that are about 36 years old. Some of y'all have like aunts and uncles that are about 36 years old. So consider that, right? It was only 36 years ago that the last segregated school closed in Canada.
Was it segregated on that school 1954?
As far as I know, yes, it was. Yes. Which is, again, definitely a sad circumstance. Another one. Put your hand up if you did not know that the first female police officer in Canada was a black woman. Put your hand up if you did not know that. So, a woman by the name of Rose Fortune was considered the first female police officer in Canada. Back then, they didn't call it police officers. That's more of a modernized term. But she did the things that a police officer does, right? She locked people up, she, put people in jail, right? She made sure that crime wasn't happening within her area, and that was her job. Again, the first female police officer in Canada. Now, this one's a kind of a funny one. Put your hand up if you did not know, all right? Put your hand up if you did not know that at one point in time, black people were not allowed to have fun in Canada. Put your hand up if you did not know. I know it sounds kind of weird, right? So, in 1785, in Shelburne, Nova Scotia, there was a law that was made that banned black people from having fun. Basically, if there was places they would hang out, they would drink, they would laugh, they would listen to music, the government at that time in Nova Scotia said, no, we can't have it. And they actually made a law against it. And so people were thrown in jail based on the fact of just having fun, of laughing, of joking around, of hanging out with friends. And so I mention all of this because I asked this. How many of you guys knew these stats and this information before I mentioned it today? How many of you actually knew this information? Okay, a couple hands, a couple hands. And so I go back to my original question. Why do we have Black History Month in Canada? And the reason why we have it, why do we have Asian Heritage Month? Why do we have a Women in History Month? The reason why we have these is because this country was built on the backs of a number of different people. And unfortunately, this information is not just readily available. It's sitting waiting for you to find it. It is sitting out there, but until you know to look for it, you're not necessarily going to find it. This information is not necessarily sitting in the history books that you're learning. This information is not something that's out in our society, but it existed. And all of us, and people from all backgrounds, had an opportunity to build this country up to what it is today. And we know we need a lot of changes. We know there's things that we can improve on. And I believe that all of you have an opportunity to be the next leaders to make these changes. But the truth of the matter is that there's a lot of narratives, a lot of stories that have existed that aren't put out there in our history books. And so the information about Black History Month, the information about Asian Heritage Month, Women History Month, we have these months to remember that everybody had a part in building this country up to what it is. It's something that unfortunately is not there for everybody to see, but we want to have this information put out there so everybody can feel a part of what this country is and where we are going.
And we are racing for $100 bill. The winner of this race will take this. It's a $100 bill. Before I say go, I'm going to make a couple statements. If those statements apply to you, I want you to take 2 steps forward. Take 2 steps forward. If it wasn't because of your athletic ability, you don't have to pay for college. Take 2 steps forward if you never wondered where your next meal was going to come from. I want you guys up here in the front just to turn around and look. Every statement I've made has nothing to do with anything any of you have done. Has nothing to do with decisions you've made. Everything I've said has nothing to do with what you've done. Well done, these people up here have a better opportunity to win this $100. Does that mean these people back here can't race? No. We would be foolish to not realize we've been given more opportunity. We don't want to recognize that we've been given a head start. But the reality is we have. Now, there's no excuse. They still got to run that race. You still got to run your race. That is a picture of life, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing you've done has put you in the league that you're in right now. When I say go, on your mark, get set, go!
Has anybody seen this video before? Never. Yeah, I know it's been on social media. Again, this is a workshop, so I'm hoping to get some interaction from you. But I like for someone just to kind of tell me, give me one lesson you learned from that video. Someone just shout it out. What's one thing you learned from that? Not everybody at once, not everyone at once. Come on, come on, go ahead.
It seemed like some people who were stepping back and who were at the back in line almost felt too defeated to actually run. Some ran, and some just kind of felt like they almost gave up.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Despite the hand that you're given in life, you still have to run the race of life. You still have to run that race.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. How about one of my students? Yeah. Oh. I love that. Very good. Awesome, awesome. Give me another one. Somebody else. Something you learned from that. Come on, don't be shy. Come on. I see you got something. Come on. Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. So, we all just saw the video, and absolutely right what everyone just said there. When we have our starting place in this world, you know, I wasn't born with, or I didn't have the decision to be born as a male. I didn't have the decision to be born as a black man. I just came into the world, and here I am, right? We don't make these decisions. These decisions happen through DNA, through, you know, other things. However, oftentimes we judge each other based on these circumstances that we can't change. My parents had a religion before I was born, and so I happened to be born to that religion. But we judge each other, we make fun of each other based on things that we can't change. I can't change the size of my nose. I can't change if my butt is big, right? I can't change these things, right? But we judge each other based on these things. And the truth of the matter is, just like in this video here, there is a starting line in life. And depending on the circumstances you're born in, some of us are born with a privilege of being up here. Some of us might have parents who have $1 million in the bank. And that's fabulous. If your parents have it, then that's amazing. I'm sure they worked hard for it, and it gives you an opportunity to have a head start. And I think as we get older, when you have children, I'm sure you want to set them up to make sure that they're ahead in life as well. But the truth of the matter is, some people are born in circumstances that set them back. Some of us are born in situations where we don't have a father in our life. Some of us are born in circumstances where we have no parents in our life, where we're in a foster type situation. Some of us are born in situations where there's poverty at home. But regardless of what your situation might be, each and every one of us have to run that race. And just because you started here, it doesn't mean you have to end there. Wherever you started, it doesn't define where you finish. You have great people in the world who have done amazing things. Someone like Oprah Winfrey, for example. who's gone through so many things. She was sexually assaulted by 3 different family members. She found herself pregnant at the age of 14 by one of those family members. And after the baby was born, the baby passed away. But you see Oprah doing some amazing things, one of the richest women in the world. Because she didn't use a bad situation that she had to hinder her. She actually used the lessons that she learned from it to push her ahead and to make her the best person that she can be. And now we all know her name because of what she's been able to do. And I use Oprah because she's an obvious example that some of the world knows, but there's people in your family who are absolutely smashing. There's people who are in your neighborhood. There's people who are in your school who are doing amazing things based on the fact that they've started in such a difficult situation in life. So regardless of where you are in life, I think it's so important that if you have an opportunity to start ahead, maybe do something to help someone behind you to pull them up. If you are moving along in life and you're making some really good headway, do yourself a favor and reach back and see if there's someone else that you can help in this world. Because once we all help each other, we can all finish at the finish line around the same time and help each other become better and make this world a better place. Now, if we had it set up, I would love for everybody to have a piece of paper, but let's just kind of do this anyway. So I want you to think of having a mask, right? So one side is a black side, the other side is a white side. It's a mask, and you'll be writing on both sides. Just kind of imagine this. So on one side, you're going to write, how do you make people see you? How do you perceive that people see you? And the other side of the mask, you're going to write, how do you see yourself? So again, I'm hoping to have some interaction here. So my question to you is, how do you think people see you? How do you think people see you? I'd love to hear some answers from you guys, if possible. How do you think people see you? You got something? No? That's what, sorry? Nerdy brown girl. Okay, all right, all right. Anyone else? How do you think people see you? My friend, how do you think people see you? Tall? Okay, yeah. Athletic? Okay, awesome, awesome. My friend, how do you think people see you? You don't think about it? Okay, all right, no problem.
As a leader?
As a leader, okay, very good, very good, very good. My friend, how do you think people see you? A math genius, okay, all right, awesome. How do you think people see you? An overachiever, okay, awesome. My friend, how do you think people see you?
I don't think that because
Okay, awesome. I like that. Awesome. Very good, very good. Okay, let me get one more. How do you think people see you? My friend, how do you think people see you? Sure. Just another teenager. Okay, awesome. All right, so I listed out, I did this exercise as well, right? And this is the way I think people see me, right? So I think people see me as a big black guy, right? Because I'm big and I'm black, right? All right. I think people see me as, sometimes people see me as scary. I've had that. I give the example of you see me walking down the dark alley. There's been times that I've been walking down a dark street and someone will hold their purse, or I hear the locking of the car door because they think that I might be doing something. So I have had that perception of me that people thought that I was scared. So I mentioned the dark alleys. People don't want to see me walking down a dark alley beside me. How do I think people see me? I had someone tell me before that I look like a criminal. And I'm like, what does a criminal look like? Right? It's kind of weird. And I think sometimes people see me as a player. I've had people say, yo, Jeff, how many girls you got? I'm like, if I had that many girls, I don't think my wife would be happy. You know what I'm saying? But I've had people come to me and say that. Now, on the other side, how do you see yourself? What do you see about you? How do you see yourself? And again, I'm looking for some interaction from my friends here. How do you see yourself? My friend, how do you see yourself? Yeah, both of you. How do you see yourself? Hardworking. I love it. Very good. As a student. Okay, perfect. All right. My friend, how do you see yourself? Yeah. Discipline. Very good. Very good. How do you see yourself? Shy. Okay. All right. How do you see yourself? The kid from Brampton who plays soccer from Brampton too, so I'm good with that. All right. How do you see yourself? As a kind person. Very good. Very good. I love that. I love that. One of my friends in the back there. How do you see yourself? You're looking around. All of you. How do you see yourself? Helpful. Okay. What about your friend beside you there? Quiet. Okay, very good, very good. So again, I answer this as well, right? How do I see myself? I see myself as trustworthy. I think that I'm a trustworthy individual. I see myself as loving. I see myself as compassionate. I see myself as being sometimes overly critical on myself. Is anybody here sometimes overly critical on yourself? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes we are. We judge ourselves harder than we judge other people. And I also see myself as simply just trying to do the best that I can. Is anybody here just always trying to do the best that they can in this world? Like sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's tough, but you're trying to do the best that you can. Now let me ask you this. Is there anybody here that actually sees themselves in these things, that you would say that those are the same things that you see yourself as? Trustworthy, compassionate, trying to do the best you can? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So this is the funny thing though, because when we think about how people see us, it's very different. What I see as the way people see me is very different as the way people would see you. But when we see ourselves, it's very much the same. All of us can see ourselves as trusting. All of us can see ourselves as loving. All of us can see ourselves as simply doing the best that we can. We all see ourselves the same way, but it's funny, because we see ourselves the same way, we are alike in that aspect. But we still find the little differences between us to separate us. See, if you were to find someone that was the exact opposite of you, so for me, I'm a middle-aged black male, if I was to find like a baby, maybe a Caucasian baby, a female, and you use her DNA, and you use my DNA, and you compared it under the microscope, the difference between that person who's the exact opposite of you physically, if you look at them and you look at you under the microscope, the difference between you and the person that's most opposite of you is 0.01%. The difference of you and someone who looks the exact opposite of you, on the DNA level, the microscopic level, the only difference between you and them is 0.01%. That means you are more alike than you are different. But the sad thing is, this 0.01% is what we use to separate each other. This 0.01% is what caused 400 years of slavery in the United States and 200 years plus slavery here in Canada. This 0.01% is what caused the Holocaust. It's what caused genocide all over the world. This is what caused murders all the time. The difference of 0.01%. We have to start seeing each other more like brothers and sisters. Despite the fact that I may have a different complexion, despite the fact that I may show up differently sexually, the fact that I might have a different hair or I dress differently, we have to start seeing each other more as our brothers and sisters, because that's how we're able to step through and really work to become the best we can and make this world as good as it can be. So I've got another exercise for you, if I can. So I want you to consider maybe 1, 2, or 3 people in your life that you are the most closest to that you are not related to. So think about that for a second. 1, 2, or 3 people in your life that you are the most closest to that you are not related to. Put your hand in the air if you've got someone in mind. I'm not going to ask you who it is, but put your hand if you've got someone in mind. So again, someone who you are really close with, who you trust. Someone who you absolutely trust, who you are not related to. We got some hands? All right, perfect. Okay. Now, so again, 1 or 2, 3 people that you have. All right. Now, I want you to consider. Put your hand up if that person or those people that you're talking about who you trust, put your hand up if they're the same gender as you. Okay, awesome. Now, do me a favor and put your hand up if that person or those people in your life that you're thinking about that you trust the most, who are not your family, put your hand up if they are the same demographic, same background as you, same skin tone as you. Put your hand up if that's the same. Okay, perfect, perfect. And that's pretty much average, right? We tend to hang out with people who have like-minded thinking, who like the same sports, who like the same music, and oftentimes it's people from our own background, our own culture, which is fabulous. Now let me ask you this. If you had a school project and that person is in school with you, put your hand up if you would actually, and you had to use partners, put your hand up if you actually had that person work on that project with you. Like if you had a choice. All right, perfect. Now, you are the CEO of a company. You are the president of a company, right? It's years from now, you own a company or you're in charge of it, and you come across a couple of amazing jobs and you need to fill these positions. And these jobs, like they need somebody to maybe fly and do some cushy work, maybe fly out to Brazil and fly out and do some real kind of cool stuff, right? So you can hire anybody, right? Put your hand up if you could, you'd hire one of the people you trusted in the group that we just talked about, you hire them for that position. Put your hand up. Perfect. Again, this is something that most of us would do, right? But this is where the problem lies. The problem lies in a situation where when the people we trust that we would choose for these positions, oftentimes, again, they're the same gender as us. They're the same background or color skin as us. And so when we're working in certain positions, and you always hire the people who you trust, who happen to be the same gender, who happen to be the same skin color, sometimes there's a little Asian boy or an indigenous girl who has the exact qualification that job needs. But sometimes they don't get seen or they don't get heard because we would rather have the people who we trust in those positions. It doesn't mean that we can't trust this other person, but just like that, we put people in the roles around us who look like us, who sound like us, who talk like us.
Ms. Sorbera, please call the main office. Ms. Sorbera, please call the main office.
And sometimes that person who looks different than us doesn't get the same opportunities. And because of the world that we live in, because we live in a country where there was slavery at one point in time, businesses were built on the backs of other people. And as those businesses were built and money was being made by the owners, there was people who were giving free labor who weren't making the money. Then when slavery was abolished and they started to work and everybody started to work, the jobs and the positions that you see out there even to this day, they've been filled for many, many years, generally by one group. And so when the other groups are trying to make change and trying to jump in there and to be a part of it, oftentimes we have the mentality of, I'm going to hire somebody who resembles me. I'm going to hire somebody who thinks like me. And sometimes a person who thinks like us or resembles us, it keeps that certain group, the CEOs of the world, the vice presidents of the world, the chief of police of the world, the chief of firefighters of the world. It keeps it in one group only, because sometimes we don't open the door for other groups. And I mention this because you are on the verge of stepping into the real world. You're only a few years away from graduating, from going off to college, university, and stepping into a world. You are the ones that are going to be able to make change in our community. You are the ones that are going to be able to open doors for others who will have the open mind to say, you know what, I'd love to have my homegirl, my homeboy working with me, and that would be great, but there's another person over there who has amazing qualifications. And yeah, maybe they don't like hockey like me. Maybe they don't like to drink a certain drink like me. But you know what? This person has the skill set to actually do the job. And maybe I should try to open the door for somebody else. We all have the ability to do this as you step into the world and become the leaders of tomorrow. So it's important that you understand this now, because if we're going to keep going forward and making this world the world that it should be, to make our country the country that it should be, we all have to have the open mind of being able to be fair to everybody who's out there, regardless if they look like us, if they speak like us, or if they don't. Now, oftentimes, we get certain stereotypes about people. Can someone tell me, where do we often get stereotypes about others? Where do we get them from? Social media?
Pop culture.
Sorry?
Pop culture.
Pop culture, yeah.
Comedians.
Say it again.
Comedians.
Comedians, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. Their appearance, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so we get the thoughts of other people based on the information that we receive. And oftentimes, even though we receive this information, it doesn't mean that this information is correct. It doesn't mean that it's accurate. And so one of the places that we get it from, somebody said media, social media. So a study was done at the University of Toronto that showed in TV commercials, during the study, they found that oftentimes people who were of Caucasian descent were often shown in high social economic status. So basically, if you saw a TV commercial for a Mercedes-Benz or for jewelry, oftentimes the actors in the commercial would be of Caucasian descent, right, or European descent. Where the same study showed that people of Black descent were more shown in the lower social economic status. So driving maybe the Hondas or McDonald's commercials as opposed to the high-end commercials, right? And the study also showed people of East and Southeast Asian descent were negatively shown as achievement-oriented. Like, I always have to get that A. I always have to be able to achieve. I always have to become that doctor. And we know that these stereotypes are simply not true. But this is what we see oftentimes in the commercials. We also see it in TV shows where, again, a study was done at UCLA that took a number of different TV shows, popular TV shows at the time, and broke down the characters. And they found that many of the characters, again, were of Caucasian descent, which is fine. I'm not here to dispute that. But what I'm saying is you can see that it's smaller slices of the pie that show other demographics. And so when Hollywood movie says, we need a criminal in this movie, we need someone to come in and rob a store in this movie or in this TV show, sometimes they reach out for a Black person. Or we need a basketball player. They're not necessarily going to reach out to the Asian guy. They reach out to a Black actor. And these are the stereotypes that continuously are shown to us in the world, even though these stereotypes aren't necessarily true. Again, box office movies, the exact same thing, is where they continue to show a certain demographic, and when they show other demographics, they show them in stereotypical type roles. And so our job is to see it and decipher it, and recognize that just because these are the messages I'm getting, it doesn't mean that it's true. It doesn't mean that this is what our society is a reflection of. And I think that it's important that we are able to see that, because once we can see that, we can be the difference that this world needs. We can be the ones that are going to ignite hope into the rest of the world. It really does start with a small group. We can't expect a big masses to change, but when we start changing in smaller groups, we start to spark change in the entire world. Because we recognize that people need to be treated fairly. We recognize that people need to have a fair opportunity so they can have an opportunity to actually go out there and create the things that they want to create. But it starts right here. It starts right here with us, making the conscious decision to say, I'm not going to listen to the stereotypes that I see, even though they continue to be thrown at me. I know that what I'm seeing isn't accurate with the culture or the people that they're speaking about. I think it's our job to ignite the hope. And so speaking of igniting hope, and again, being Black History Month, I just want to share a few stories. Some of these people you might know, some of them you might not. But again, it's about igniting hope. Not necessarily just hope in regards to the Black culture of the people I'm going to speak of, but hope of people who have changed the world because they decided that they weren't going to quit. They decided that they weren't going to give up. So I think many of us have heard of Harriet Tubman. Many of us, yes. So I bring up Harriet Tubman because she was somebody who ignited hope. At one point in time, she was enslaved. And she decided, I can't take this life anymore. I'm tired of being treated like nothing, being treated like less than an animal. And so in the dark of the night one day, she decided that she was going to run. And she ran and she fled, and she was able to finally make her way to the northern area of the United States where slavery was not legal. And while she was there, she stayed there for a while, but it started to bug her that she was free. She could work and do whatever she wanted to do. But she recognized that she had people that she loved back home that she wanted to free as well, including her husband. And so she decided that she was going to go back. And she went back into the enemy territory, the area where if they caught her, they were going to beat her and probably kill her. But she decided that it was worth going back to save the people that she loved. And so she went back, and she actually found her husband, but her husband believed that she was dead. And so her husband actually remarried. So she left her husband behind. And so she found a couple of friends and family, and she said, let's go. And in the dark of the night, she took off again. And she took all those people with her back to the northern area of the United States. And when she got back, she said, you know what, there's a lot of people that I've met on the way that would love to be free as well. I don't think it's fair that anybody has to be a slave to anybody else. And so what did she do? She turned around and she went back again. And she continued to do that over and over. And at that point in time, the government, the laws, people started to realize that she was one of the people responsible for freeing all the slaves, which was costing the slave owners a lot of money. And so they started to put a warrant out for her saying that we want her dead or alive. If you find her, you kill her, whatever, but we want her body. And so the slave owners now started to make their way north to the north end of the United States looking for their slaves that they owned. And so at that point, all the people who were now free started to make their way here to Canada. And so Harriet Tubman would continue to go back and forth and bring people here to Canada, specifically to the St. Catharines area. And she did this back and forth, and she was able to save over 300 people. She made 19 trips. Every time she went back, it got more dangerous and dangerous because they realized that this is a woman that we need to get, dead or alive. But because she decided that she wanted to make a change, she continued to go back, putting herself behind and going back to get other people to help them. Has anybody ever heard of Henry Box Brown? A couple of hands? Yeah, so Henry Brown was someone who was also enslaved, and so was his wife and his children. And he went to a slave owner and he said, you know, I see the way that my wife and my children are treated, and it's killing me as a father. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to put some money together so I can buy the freedom of my family. And the owner was like, okay, man, whatever. And so he worked and worked and worked, and he didn't get paid a whole lot because, of course, he was a slave. But any little penny that he was able to find and collect, he put it together. So finally, he went to the slave owner and he said, you know, I'm still working on it. Please just do me a favor, just hold off. I don't have enough money, but I'm working on it. And the slave owner said, yeah, I can't deal with that. I'm selling your wife. I'm selling your kids. And so he got rid of them, and he never saw his wife and his children ever again. So at that point in time, Henry said, no, I can't live under these conditions. It's hard enough that I'm a slave and I'm treated the way I'm treated. But the fact that he sold my wife and my children, that means that my slave owner has no heart. I can't live here anymore. And so just like Harriet Tubman, he decided it was time for him to leave. But the uniqueness that he did was that he actually got some friends to help him out. He jumped into a box. They nailed the box shut and brought it to the post office. And they, Purelator or FedEx or whatever they had back then, they put some stamps on that box, and they sent him to a northern area within the United States where people were free. And the trip took 27 hours for him to get from Virginia to Pennsylvania. And half that trip, he was upside down on his head in that box. But he persevered enough because he knew that he could not live in that type of circumstance. And so the great thing is that he actually lived right here in the GTA in Toronto the last 10 years of his life, because he realized the great opportunities that we have right here in Canada. Anybody heard of Willie ODonnell? Any hockey fans in the room? No hands there. Any Raptor fans in the room? Okay, a few more hands, all right. I don't have a Raptor story, I just had to ask because there's no hockey fans. Willie ODonnell is the first black man to play hockey in the NHL, right, professional hockey. And the reason why this is such a big deal was because when he stepped into that arena, when he stepped into that space, he wasn't accepted by his teammates. In fact, it was so bad that he actually had to change from his regular clothes into his hockey equipment in another room because they didn't want to see the sight of him naked. And so he would step onto the ice, and he was treated so bad by fans, and would yell things and throw things, and they weren't invited. All he wanted to do was play the sport that he loved. All he wanted to do was just to have fun. But even despite going through that, because he decided that he wasn't going to quit, because he decided that he had to persevere, he has opened the door for other hockey players who are playing today. People like P.K. Subban and other black hockey players who are in the league who are doing great things. All because Willie ODonnell decided that he was not going to give up. Anybody see the new $10 bill yet? It's out there pretty much now. Does anybody know who's on the $10 bill? Willie Desmond, yeah, Willie Desmond, absolutely. And I think it's so important that we get her story out because she is a representation of perseverance. She's a representation of somebody who ignited hope and made change within our country. In 1946 in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, Viola decided that she wanted to go see a movie at a movie theater. And so she went in, she bought the ticket, and she sat down right in front of the screen. And a manager came in and said, man, you can't sit in this theater. And you can't sit in this chair. People who look like you People who look like you have to sit up there. And so she decided that wasn't right. And so eventually the police were called. And they took her to, they dragged her out of there and they took her to jail. And she was actually charged with the criminal offense of trying to defraud the government of 1 cent. Because the ticket that she had a tax of 3 cents, and the ticket that they wanted her to buy up there had a tax of 2 cents. And so she was charged with trying to defraud the government. But because she decided that she wasn't going to give up, she fought this in court. And when she fought this in court, the media started to pay attention. The community started to pay attention. And the rest of Canada started to pay attention. And the laws changed because she decided that she was going to fight. The laws didn't change because the government of the day, the prime minister of the day, said, yeah, we need to make things right for everybody here in this country. The laws changed because it was a woman who decided that she was going to fight. This conversation started in a crowd just like this, that said, that law there is not right. And because she was able to persevere, we now have her on our money today. So the next time you have a viola, and I say viola because I know we say toonies and loonies, right? So I'm going to say viola when you have a $10 bill. The next time you have a viola, I want you to hold it and think about the fact that she was able to persevere and make change within our country just because she decided that she wanted to ignite the flame in terms of moving this place forward. So I'm going to quickly just jump through some of these slides because what I want to, because we're kind of running out of time here. President, our snooze on the blue button there? Oh, okay. No. Oh. I'm not. All right, come on. So a word that we often don't want to talk about, we hear right now on social media is privilege. You hear about white privilege. You hear about thin privilege. People who are thinner get better things. You hear about beauty privilege. People are considered to be more beautiful, get certain perks in this world. But the truth of the matter is that I believe that all of us have a privilege. Sometimes, though, you have to really see what else is going on in this world to understand the privilege that we have. Sometimes you have to see that other people out there are doing things that are a lot different than we do. And because of the situations that they're in, we have to understand how privileged we are. Sometimes when you see other people who are going through some health problems, and we keep eating those Big Macs and those Whoppers and all that good food, but you see someone else is suffering through their health, we start to understand how privileged we are. Sometimes when we keep asking mom and dad to buy us those new J's or buy us that new purse or whatever it is, sometimes we have to see what other people are going through to understand how privileged we truly are. But one of the things that really upsets me when it comes to the way we can be as human beings is that sometimes we use our privilege to go against the other creatures in this world. I'm talking about plants and animals and the fact that we are considered the higher intelligence on this planet. But we use our privilege to do things that we shouldn't be doing. We use our privilege to go against some of the animals that really shouldn't be treated the way they're treated. We use our privilege because we're human beings. Yeah, I can do what I want to do. This is a result of some of the things that happen because of we as humans and what we do. We use our privilege and take out other living things. And so I think it's so important that, again, we have an opportunity to make change. We have an opportunity to be the ones who are the change within this world, and it really can start right here in this school. I really do believe it's like a ripple effect. When you take a rock and you throw it into the ocean and you can see how the ripple effect moves. That's exactly the way things can start. It can start right here in this school. But once we understand who we are, then we can understand how we can treat ourselves and how we can treat others. And once we do that, we can make so much change in this world. There's no reason, I believe that there's no reason why there's someone in this room that can't become the next prime minister of this country. There's no reason why someone in this room can't be the person who comes up with the cure to cancer or solves world hunger. But it starts by understanding who you are and respecting the people who are around you for what they bring. Not because of what they look like, not because of the way they dress, but because of what they can bring. And once we are able to do that, we can make change in this world that can make things amazing, that can make this world awesome. But again, it starts with us being the change that we want to see in this world. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Black History Month is a great time because it's a time for us to talk about some of the more challenging issues in our society around racism, around discrimination, around culture, around race relations. So I do think, Black History Month is a great month and a great time to do that. Student Council has a campaign going today in regards to this idea of making sure that all of us feel loved. Going through a presentation, I feel a lot of love right now. That's what I'm feeling anyways. And the love goes around this idea of, having a conversation around making change. Change which I think will help all of us in our society to do a lot of good things to ensure that going forward we have a better world that acknowledges the idea of privilege, that acknowledges the idea of our past in regards to some of the horrible things we have done to each other, and try to make sure that going forward we're not going to be doing those things. You are an incredible speaker. Thank you so much for bringing your history here, for bringing your experience here, for bringing just your authentic self here to the students. And let's give Jeff a round of applause. That's it for me, guys. We're going back to teachers. Please thank you for coming. You're going back to your classes. Jeff, again.